A long-time McLean County resident and a McLean County board applicant was forced to relive some trauma. The trauma of being stabbed 19 times after being questioned by a Democrat board member. And it's the County Board District 5 seat that has been left vacant by the Republican John McIntyre. You guys know that he resigned abruptly due to health concerns. Elizabeth Johnston, she's the presiding chair, and she serves as a county board member in that district. And she asked Chad Berck about his temperament in a public forum. And Elizabeth Johnson, she claims to know several people in the Ironwood neighborhood who had concerns about his temperament because he was arrested for self-defense. You're like, wait a second, Kat, you can't get arrested for self-defense. Oh, no, you can. And we're going to talk about it here coming up in just a little bit. We have a very special hour planned for you. I have a guest in studio from 6 to 7 o'clock. And then at the 7 o'clock hour, then we're going to get into some of the news. Okay, so we've got to talk about RFK Jr. switching to the independent party for this presidential run. But which candidate does that hurt? I'm going to answer that question in the 7 o'clock hour. Plus, we've got to check this out. The Palestinian flag flying next to the LGBTQ plus flag outside of the Congresswoman's office. It's I bet you could guess what Congresswoman has the Palestinian flag, the LGBTQ flag outside of her office, despite all of these Hamas attacks. I think it's kind of funny that they're right next to each other because and Hamas and the Palestinians, they if you're gay over there, yeah, no, you're not living very long. Those people would not be flying an LGBTQ flag over there. But we're going to talk about that Congresswoman, and this MSNBC host is blasting this network, the network MSNBC, because they seem to be more concerned about defending Hamas. Okay, that they're concerned about defending Hamas and this MSNBC host. So this guy is by no means a far right. He's a lefty, and he says enough is enough. We should not be defending Hamas in this. So we're going to get to all of that in the 7 o'clock hour. But like I said, very special guest in studio, Chad Berck. He joins me. Chad, how you doing this morning?
Great. Thanks for having me in, Kat. I appreciate it so much.
Oh,
It's
I
great being here.
appreciate you coming in, and I'm just kind of shocked about, this meeting. I was watching the executive committee meeting yesterday. I didn't get to it that night, but you have applied to be a McLean County board member in that District 5. That's my district, by the way, Chad.
Great,
So
great.
I hope that I hope that you're successful. I
Thank you.
think that Chad is a great
Thank
guy,
you.
folks, and he was questioned yesterday or Monday. He was questioned Monday about why he wants to be a county board member, about his merits, and something came up in that meeting. What did Elizabeth Johnson ask you in the executive committee meeting? And tell me a little bit about how you responded.
The question came up that in Ironwood, apparently she had talked to some of the neighbors about um, my temperament, I think is the word she used. I'm not exactly sure. I haven't gone over it.
Mhm.
And me being apparently aggressive or negative in some manner was the connotation. And then she used a question about my arrest. She
Mm.
very subtly said it, and I couldn't really hear that part, so I asked her to repeat it. And
She did seem very
she
hesitant.
was hesitant in wanting to mention that, and she wouldn't really look towards me. So she was, in fact, asking about my arrest. That's the whole point of her question. And I was expecting this. It's not something that I am ashamed of at all.
Mm.
I was arrested about 18 months ago or so. And it's due to the fact that my family had been stalked. We've had someone harassing us. Uh, and that person decided to make an appearance on a night, and I was forced to defend myself and my family. And I don't think she expected the answer that I gave her. And that's kind of what the outcome
Well, I don't
was.
think anybody in that room was expecting the answer that you gave them, because I don't know what the feeling was in that room, but just watching the video of the meeting, Elizabeth Johnston, she's the presiding chair. John McIntyre, he resigned abruptly due to health concerns, and none of the board members spoke.
It was
The
dead
room
silence.
fell silent.
It was eerily silent, which out of respect, I appreciated that. It is very emotional for me still, the experience that me and my family went through. And I do respect greatly the respect that they did give me while I was speaking about that. All of them. I have to give them kudos for that. All of them across the board, because it is difficult.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was also something shocking for me when I was watching the video. I was like, oh, wow, they asked him this question, and you just stayed calm, cool as a cucumber, answering questions. And then what really dropped my jaw was the being stabbed 19 times. And then I was like, wait a second, they're making this guy relive this trauma by asking him this question. And all of these charges have been dropped.
Yeah, everything was dropped. I had to have actually a special prosecutor here in Illinois due to what Illinois considers a special relationship with the then district attorney here. We had Don Knapp. We went to the same church, or we go to the same church. I knew Don through my kids went to Epiphany with his preschool and things like that. So I know Don. I wouldn't say, we play tennis together or golf or anything, but Don's a great guy. I know him. Because Don didn't want any appearance, plus he was going through his election for judge. He didn't want any appearance of any favoritism at all, especially with me. So in a very smart move, he had a special prosecutor appointed. And, that's, in the end, it was the best thing, because with me doing this now, I'm sure there would have been questions.
People would have said, oh, well, he got off easy because Don Knapp's his buddy. Yeah, but now we've got a special prosecutor.
And I'll tell you, the special prosecutor was very thorough. As you can see, I did not get charges dropped initially. They didn't just say, oh, let's drop this arrest, Mr. Berck. It was 6 months or more of going through court hearing. I had a very good lawyer, Phil Finnegan, here in town. Excellent. If anyone, I'm going to give him a plug. I mean,
give him a plug.
Yeah.
Phil Finnegan, you got my friend Chad, the help he needed, and we need good attorneys. We're going to get to that, because you need self-defense, you need attorneys, you need self-defense insurance, you need to get a gun. Okay, so we're going to get to all of that. But before we move on to the actual story and that night, I wanted to ask, were you upset when they asked you that question? Do you think it was fair of them to ask you that question?
To be honest, I was not upset so much as I was ashamed and disappointed.
But respectful, because you appreciated the question.
I appreciated the question, but I was disappointed, because I legitimately came into all of this with open arms and an open mind, and willing to work across the board as a Republican. I feel that the city councils here in McLean County are vital, but the county board are like the parents of the boards. They oversee everything, make sure the monies get where monies have to be for all of the smaller boards and councils and townships. And they're the parents under the state Constitution, we are the overseers of the state
Mhm.
as far as the statutes go. So when the parents argue, like the city councils are,
Mm.
who's in charge
Yeah.
locally? And it really disappointed me that I got this question because they don't I don't know her. I don't know her. She doesn't know me. And instead of, I can understand if she was attacking a part of my merit or something I've done. If you worked for a company and you embezzled something,
Mhm.
yeah, jump all over that. But just because I had an arrest, not a conviction,
Mhm.
two total different things.
And those charges were dropped, so the arrest is not,
Yeah,
uh
it meant nothing. You can get arrested for uh, trespassing
Mhm.
if you go back into Walmart after you were told not to, as holding a sign up for protesting something.
Mhm.
So just because you're arrested means nothing at all. It's the charge after you go through trial
Mhm.
that is important.
Innocent until proven guilty.
Until proven innocent, until proven guilty, and people forget that.
Mhm.
And unless you go through the judicial system as someone for the first time, like me and my family did, it's eye opening. I learned a tremendous amount. Maybe I was naive growing up in a country believing the red, white, and blue, which I still believe in 1,000%. I believe, the Superman mantra that, everything will work out in the end. And for me, it did, luckily.
Mhm.
But not everyone gets that
Yeah.
dream. And thankfully, we do have the world's best judicial system because nowhere else would I probably have had the opportunities to go through all the hearings, have people work for me, uh, and the checks and balances that we
Mhm.
have here.
Mhm.
Fortunately, it worked, but it can be done better.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
that's something that I do talks about with Gun Saves Live and talk about this
Mhm.
on how you as citizens can do things differently when you have encounters with law enforcement to know your rights and how uh, your interaction with police officers can be civilly. You don't argue, but you know your rights and answering questions and things,
Mhm.
and have insurance. There's self-defense insurance that's vital. It's very inexpensive, but it's going to save you going in debt for life
Mm.
with the lawyer. I think our court costs, lawyers, everything would have been over $20,000. We couldn't have absorbed that.
And it should have never happened. That's where I wanna go next. We've gotta take a quick break. It should have never really it should have never
The
happened.
judge admitted that. He apologized to us in the last hearing
Mhm.
from his heart. He said he'd never had a case like this. Should never have happened.
Yes. So we're going to go back to May of 2022 when we come back from the other side of break. Chad Berck, he fought for his life against his aggressor. His name is James DeWitt. He had multiple priors, including a 2016 stabbing of an Illinois State University student. And the normal police didn't arrest the guy who stabbed the guy 19 times. No, 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 no. They arrest the guy who was stabbed 19 times for defending himself. The normal police arrested him for self defense. Yes, you can be arrested for self defense. And yes, you need to take the necessary precautions so that doesn't happen to you. Chad is going to tell us a little bit more about his story the night of May, the night in May of 2022. That's next on the Morning Buzz. Be sure to text in at 309-451-9299. I'm Kat Peterson. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's Kat Peterson 929. You can also like, love, share the video that's live right now on Facebook, Rumble, Twitter, and YouTube. I'll catch you on the other side. stabbed 19 times. And then he was questioned by a Democrat board member, Elizabeth Johnston. She's the presiding chair for the McLean County Board because Republican John McIntyre, he resigned abruptly due to health concerns. And they're looking to fill this seat. The meeting's going to be on Thursday. It's going to go up for a vote. And the nomination has to come from Catherine Metzger, who is the now chair. She was the presiding chair, Elizabeth Johnson, but at the last meeting, Catherine Metzger was elected to become the chairman. So she is the new chairman. So she gets to nominate Chad Berck here, who joins me in studio. He's the McLean County Board applicant, and he's a longtime McLean County resident.
Yes.
So before we took the break, we were going to talk about that night. So I do want to take us back to that night, Chad.
Okay.
Tell me what you feel comfortable with. I don't want to make you relive this, but I think it's so important that people realize that this can happen in your community. This is right. I live in North Normal. This is my neighborhood, right? And I my jaw dropped when I read the Gun Save Life article, and I saw this Ring door cam.
Okay.
Yeah. And in the Ring door cam, and I'm not going to play it here, but in the door cam, you can't see anything, but you can hear. And I recognized your voice, and there was no other voices in that tape. It was just Chad's, and he was screaming for his life. He was screaming, "Help me," in the street. So take me back to that night. What happened? What led up to this?
Sure. Yeah. There's a few ways I can start the story. The way it started actually goes back to the Thanksgiving before that May. We got a new dog that summer, a small Hungarian Vizsla dog, a great dog. He is replacing a dog that had passed away, a fantastic animal. And if anyone knows about Hungarian Vizslas, they're very, very nose friendly dogs. They like to run, very energetic. And we have an electric fence, and I just let him run around, and he chases butterflies and leaves, and I work outside a lot. Every day or so, this gentleman would be walking, and I saw him a lot. He would be walking with his young puppy, German Shepherd. It was never a problem. Well, one day I was actually inside, and Ranger, my dog, was outside, and a man knocks on my door. And he said, "Your dog's outside." I said, "Oh, yeah, I know. He's on an electric fence. He's fine. I'm watching him." He said, "Well, you need to bring him in." I said, "Why? What happened? Did he get out?" And all my neighbors know my dog and my previous dog. We all watched each other's animals, and we're close. I have great neighbors. I said, did he get into something? Chew up something? He said, no, he just makes my dog bark as I walk by. And I kind of smiled because some people are funny about their dogs, and I understood totally. I said, "Well, I'll come in and I'll come out and grab him if he's bothering you." Didn't think a thing of it, because hey, I'm going to be a good neighbor. This was the first encounter I had. It was around Thanksgiving, I believe. No problem. Go outside, grabbed him, and I kind of noticed the man had a little bit of a social issue, but no big deal.
Yeah, well, I would say you have a social issue if you're going up to somebody and saying, "Hey, bring your dog in. It bothers my dog."
Yeah, I just figured he maybe he had an odd way of talking with people. You see all kinds. So again, the next day, same thing happens, but he was a little more aggressive in the way he knocked on my door. It was more of a bang, bang, bang than a tap, tap, tap. And I have a Ring doorbell. So I thought that's kind of odd. So I said, "What happened? Did my dog jump through the electric fence or what?" He says, "No, he makes my dog bark. He bothers me. I'm trying to train my dog to walk." I said, "Well, okay. I'll grab him, while you walk by." Okay, that kind of went through. The next day, he banged on my door again. This time, it was a boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
And it kind of worried me because my family was home that day. And they all said, "Whoa, who's that?" I said, "I don't know." So I went, answered, it was James.
James DeWitt.
James DeWitt.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Hey, James." He said, "Hey, your dog's outside again." I said, "Okay, what's going on?" "You need to keep him inside." So why do I need to keep my dog inside? And we went through the whole thing again. He's bothering me and my dog. I said, "James, he doesn't need to come inside. This is enough." Well, that encounter ended and he walked on because he kind of sensed, I think, that was enough. The next day he comes again. This time, no words were said. I just said, I kind of walked outside to the porch, walking him back. You can use that psychology where you walk someone off out your house by opening the door. And he knew that we didn't need to talk. That my attitude was, I'm not dealing with you.
I've had enough.
I've had enough.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, it's just this constant going to your door, banging on your door, bothering your kids at the bus stop. I've actually seen pictures. You sent me a photograph of a picture of James DeWitt flipping off your children and you in the car while at the bus stop, right?
Yeah, and that was actually towards the end of this bus stop incident. He had been there apparently doing it for days or a couple weeks, but I didn't find out about it till a parent approached me. My kids were too scared to say anything, and the parent approached me finally, thankfully, and said, "Hey, there's this weird guy that's been showing up at the bus stop." Their kids are about the same age as mine, and every morning just stands there, and maybe you should start showing up too, so we have more than one parent. And usually I would be at the bus stop, but I think that week or so there had been something going on and I wasn't able to. So yeah, of course I showed up and James was there. And what's strange is my children went to 3 different bus stops because one was in grade school, junior high, and high school. So he was showing up at 3 different times on purpose. And then he would act like he's walking his dog and keep walking on. But he would stand there and wait for the bus to get on, knowing that those were my kids.
How terrifying.
It was very terrifying for my children because they knew him by then, because he actually had came by a 5th time, banged on my door where I had to no trespass him off because he was screaming. And my children and my wife had to witness that, him screaming at me that this was getting out of control, my dog, and it needed to end. This goes back to before him walking by. I had just gotten my dog. I had the electric fence. Before I even knew who James was, I saw what was now James walk by. My dog's outside. I'm in the garage, and I noticed my dog's not running around. And I thought, well, maybe he chased a squirrel. So I called over to my neighbor across the street. "Have you seen Ranger?" "Nope." Call my other neighbors. They're like, "No, I haven't seen him. He's not running around." I looked in all the normal places where he would have went, not there. And he's a puppy, so he couldn't have gone very far.
Yeah.
Next thing I know, on this that Nextdoor app, I see a post. There's my dog, and someone has him in a cage. They have taken him. What I know now, it was James DeWitt.
Wow.
Kind of convenient that James had walked by many times, knew me, knew my dog from visual.
Yeah.
I mean, we hadn't talked. Saw my dog. It had bothered him. I can only say that maybe my dog had been out of the yard. Maybe he hadn't.
But he took him.
Needless to say, he was at his house in a kennel.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay, so my neighbor saw it too.
And this is complete speculation on my part. And folks, you're listening to The Morning Buzz, Cities 92.9. We're talking with Chad Berck. He's a longtime McLean County resident, lives in North Normal, and he is a McLean County board applicant. And he's sharing with me how he was continuously stalked, harassed by a fellow named James DeWitt. And this complete speculation on my part.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Was he jealous of you? Was James jealous of your life, your children, your dog? And that's just what with psychopaths like this, right? I just don't know. And it's so clear what's going on when you see the videos, when you see the evidence of this guy, and he's out. He's out. He hasn't been arrested for anything.
He's never been arrested for anything at all. Even including assaulting or harassing the deputies at the jail.
Mm-hmm.
He went and tried to do like a First Amendment audit thing, while drunk, intoxicated, a couple of years ago. No arrest. I believe maybe an arrest, but no charge.
Mm-hmm.
It was dropped. 2016 stabbing at ISU of two black males.
Yes, we'll get to that. But first, let's talk about the actual night that you were stabbed, the 19 times. So you've been continuously harassed by this guy. At least
this harassment slowly escalated over the winter. He drove within. I was targeted at that moment when I walked him off my porch. He made my family a target. It was the bus stop with the kids. It was driving by, honking his horn all hours of the night. It was hiding in a bush next to my house, waiting until I came outside. And then it was berating me with horrible language, threatening. I mean, he basically, he did threaten to bodily injury me, all of which I reported. Nothing was done. This man knows what he can and cannot do. He knows the law. And my neighbor has also had dealings with him in the past. Same thing. Nothing was ever done. So I have a no trespass against him at this point. I think I had 6 police reports up until May against him for various things, threatening me and my family. He would stand out front of our house and videotape me and my kids. The bus stop, he would point his finger at my kids like in a gun motion and pull the trigger.
Wow.
So many things.
Yeah, so many things.
And it was against kids. So I always thought the police would do something. No, evidently it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The night of the incident, one of many things he did nightly was drive by on his Harley late at night, and he would put it in neutral, rev it up, just super loud. Oh, it would wake us up. And that was irritating for us, but it was also irritating for our neighbors. And one of which across the street, who's an Air Force veteran, his wife is suffering from cancer. She's at the time was in really bad shape, and it woke them up too, and their kids. But for us, it woke all of us up, and the dog. So I would have to then take him outside and go potty. He was a young puppy. So my wife woke up that night and said, "Hey, take the dog out because he's barking." So I walked Ranger outside, and this happened so many times. It was just normal for us at this point.
Yeah.
I would take the dog out, and while I was doing that, I had a camera at that point, so I would start working on getting the recording of James riding by on a motorcycle because I kept a diary, a ledger of all of his activities. So I was doing that.
Good for you.
Yeah, I was keeping a journal for if there was a police report I needed to do or anything. And then while I'm doing that, the dog's running around, and I look north up the road, and I see someone walking with a dog. And you can tell they're intoxicated. And he's talking. He's always yelling, very verbose. colorful language.
Yeah.
Very, very colorful. What are you doing outside? Look at you harassing me. Because I'm always the harasser with him.
Yeah.
He's the victim. It's that narcissistic attitude. And as he gets closer, we have a street lamp right out front. I get a better picture. It's of course James.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets to within my driveway, and he's in the road. I'm in my yard. He gets closer and closer, and he's coming diagonally across the road towards me. And I'm trying to get my dog because I just want to go inside and be away. That's all I want to do. I want to go inside. And I said, James, stay away. I was telling him, James, go away, go home. You're drunk. You know, I've dealt with him so many times, and all I ever did, and you can see in lots of videos, James, go home, go away. I never been to this man's house.
Mm-hmm.
Never walked to his house. Never been over there. He always is the aggressor to my house.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't catch the dog. He's fast. He's a puppy.
Mm-hmm.
And he's wanting to get to his dog and play. Well, James is probably 10 feet from me at this point in the road, the side of the road, as close as you can get to my property without touching it. And he pulls out what is now known to be a knife. And I suspected it was at the time. Plus, I knew his history of stabbing the other man.
Yeah.
The other men.
In 2016.
In 2016.
Yeah.
So I know his record.
Yeah.
I know it.
And you saw he brandished a knife at you this night.
I saw what I knew it was a knife. Probably not 100%, but I knew it was a weapon. I knew it was something. Could have been a gun. I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
But I have enough training, fortunately or unfortunately for me. And I had to take action. And that was either to run, which if I fell, he would be on me. Bad. That's not a good situation. If I ran into the house, he could chase me. Then he's in the house. I have a family. That's what the police told me to do.
To run into the house?
To run into the house and shut the door. I was told by the police, that's what you should have done, sir. Okay. That's their advice. What I was trained to do as a military person, a lot of self-defense training, jiu-jitsu training, combatives training, every class I've ever taken, real life experience in the military. When someone's that close with a knife, it's too close for even a gun. You have to engage.
Yeah.
That's what I did. I took the offense and I went for his knife hand. And I got his knife hand and took him to the ground. I maintained control of his knife hand, trying to get the knife away. The guy's 6'2". He's a big guy.
Yeah.
And I think he has had some training. Because he switched hands. He switched the knife hand.
Wow.
Which I wasn't expecting. And that's my fault. I overestimated my abilities and underestimated his abilities. So I took his back after some manipulation, was able to gain control of him, but he did switch hands with the knife while he's stabbing down towards my kidneys. I had mount. I was on bottom with him on top of me we're both facing the sky, but I'm on bottom. I have mount, crab mount.
So you're on the ground.
I'm on the ground at this point after I tossed him to the ground, maintaining control. But he switched knife hands, which I wasn't expecting. I was trying to put his arm behind his back with the knife, grab it, disarm him. But he reached around. I wasn't expecting. A normal person's not going to do that.
Yeah.
You're just going to take the knife away, done, disarmed. Okay.
Wow.
At this point, I'm like, oh crap, I've got an empty hand. So I go for the standard control choke hold, what they call choke hold, which you hear bad names about nowadays, but it's actually not a choke. It's a submission in jiu-jitsu. And I I realized then, after, and mind you, this was a 10 minutes we're struggling on the ground because this guy is pretty big.
Yeah. Yeah, 6'2". He's pretty
6'2".
big,
He's a
big guy.
big, tall guy.
Mhm.
So initially, then I gained control, and I'm trying to roll over so I'm on top, sky side. So he's on the ground. I want him on the ground. I couldn't get him over. And he's stabbing me throughout this whole time in super fast lightning motions towards my kidneys. So I have to bring my legs up, my knees bent to protect my sides, my lungs, and my kidneys.
Mm.
And I'm trying to make him go unconscious, but I don't want to, to kill him. I don't want that. I just want control to stop the stabbing. And I can't get his knife hand because he's switching hands.
Wow.
And this is going on and on and on. So finally I'm like, no, I got to put this guy to sleep.
Mm.
So I let him continue to stab me and just put both hands around his neck in the chokehold and put him out.
And he fell asleep.
He fell asleep.
Wow.
The stabbing stopped. Unfortunately, his arm was totally extended out to his left side at that point. And I could not reach the knife. Couldn't get his arm. I couldn't. He wakes up. So I got to decide, back to sleep again, go for the knife hand. And then he starts stabbing it, and he's giggling. Demonic.
And then he says, "I want to gut you like a pig."
Yeah, throughout the whole
cut
process,
you like a pig.
He's talking. I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna stab you. I'm gonna get you.
God.
Yeah, I'm gonna get you.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Demonic. That's terrifying. And in the ring, and this is what really did it for me, right? Because I can't even fathom that this guy is not, one, behind bars, two, wasn't even arrested. And here I am sitting. There's something that's there. There's something that's there about Chad. And Chad, I was like, okay, I'm going to try to go in this as unbiasedly as possible, and I'm going to try to figure out. Chad had no priors. You listen to the ring door cam. Chad is screaming for his life. You look at the defensive wounds. These are defensive wounds. Okay, these are, like, I'm going to defend myself. And he was stabbed 19 times. And I mean, tell me about, so obviously James DeWitt, he received injury.
He did receive some injuries.
Mhm.
Yes. He actually, at one point in time when I was trying to reach for his hand, he grabbed my hand, put my fingers in his mouth, and bit down. If anybody's been bit by someone or a dog, it's tremendously painful.
Mhm.
There's nothing you can do to somebody short of a few things physically to get someone to release a bite.
Yeah.
I had to do those what they call fish hook to get him to release. And that caused him some injury. But the bone in my finger was crushed because of his bite was so tenacious. And when I was putting in the choke, he got a hold of one of my wrists, actually both wrists, and he tried to slice them. I still have the scars across my wrists.
I was showing the folks here on the Gun Saves Lives photograph, the photographs. So if you guys are watching on the stream, you guys can see the actual injuries. We're live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Rumble. You guys can see it. Publicly available via our story on cities929.com, and Guns Save Life, Saves Life. They did a write-up, and Diane Benjamin, God bless her.
God bless her.
She did a write-up as well. And the reason why I wanted to have you in studio today, Chad, was because there has been a media blackout on your story. And I couldn't quite wrap my head around it. But then I started to think, I'm like, wait a second. What's going on where this guy stabbed a man with no priors? This guy has priors. This guy actually stabbed, and we're going to get to that here. I've got to take a quick break. on Cities 92.9. This guy has a prior in 2016 where he went after some students on Illinois State University's campus. And there's a detailed report.
It was a hate crime what he did.
Well, there's witnesses
Yes.
who yelled out, and I can't say the language here on the air, but
The worst words you can
racial
say.
slurs.
Racial slurs.
And said that the white woman that was with this interracial, it was I'm assuming an interracial couple. This white woman, he said she was a traitor to her race.
Yeah, he is a race hater.
And that's not you saying it. That's not me saying it. That's witnesses on the scene of a crime.
Yes.
And he was charged, but those charges were dropped.
There was
and
no
he
investigation.
was never convicted.
No, it was dropped immediately with no investigation. The hate crime unit was not sent to investigate, which we have here in Bloomington. Normal. Why wasn't it sent? That's one question that's been asked, but no answers.
Yeah. Well, we've got to take a quick break. You're listening to Cities 92.9. Join us on the live stream, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Rumble. We'll be right back. Wow. You guys will want to join us. We're going to do some exclusive interviewing. Chad and I am going to continue to ask him questions on the live stream here. I've only got about a minute left, but we're going to continue this. I think that it's important to get Chad's story out. He's a longtime McLean County board or McLean County resident, and then he's also an applicant for the McLean County board. And Elizabeth Johnston and I would have never had Chad in studio, so I do appreciate the question that Elizabeth Johnston raised in that public forum. She was she was questioning Chad here because of his temperament, because of an arrest that's on his record. But the judge has said himself that, I'm sorry that this happened to you and your family. The justice system failed you, and those charges were dropped. He was stabbed 19 times, folks, in a normal neighborhood. And there has been a media blackout on this story. There has been two people who have covered this, Diane Benjamin and John Bach from Gun Safe Life. And Chad is going to be joining me here on the live stream. We're going to do live stream when we go to break here. But in the 7 o'clock hour, I do want to continue because we have to get into the record, the prior record of Jason DeWitt. Where are we now? Where are you at in your life after this traumatic event? And, I want to also get to you being a McLean County board applicant and your hopes for the McLean County board. But this just makes so much more sense why you're so passionate about wanting to make a difference here in the county, because you went through something that you shouldn't have gone through via the justice system and the normal police. I'm sorry, guys, you could have done better. You should have done better. You should have done better. Being arrested for self-defense can happen to you. So we're going to talk about how you can prevent that from happening as well. So you guys are going to want to stay tuned. This is The Morning Buzz. Good morning, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in to the live stream. Right over there is Chad Berck. He is running, not running, he's applied for the McLean County Board vacancy. That's in District 5. That's actually my district. So who knows? Maybe you're going to be my county board member.
Maybe.
Maybe
that would be,
you're gonna be
that
my
would be
county board
exciting,
member.
wouldn't it?
Yes, it sure would be. And Chad, he applied. Little did he know he was going to be asked a question by Elizabeth Johnston. And, Chad, he has expressed his appreciation for the question. When I listened to that, my jaw dropped and I said, how could she ask a question like that of somebody who, it's all publicly available.
Yeah.
All I did after that, after hearing that question, I Googled your name and I did Chad Berck arrest, and things popped up. It was just the Gun Safe Life article. I've looked, Panagraph didn't do a story on
Nope.
it. WGLT didn't do a story on it. Nobody locally did a story on it. And I thought that was kind of odd. I clicked on the Gun Safe Life article and I read everything that they put in there, the pictures, the video of the Ring door cam where the dogs are looking and you're screaming for your life, being stabbed in the street like an animal.
Yeah.
And he's sitting there and you're telling me that he was giggling while he was stabbing you. This is what, and he's out free
He's
in
free.
my neighborhood. Like this is Ironwood. Like if you live in Ironwood, you should, and there's things that you can do to protect yourself. So that's one thing I wanted to kind of talk about before we come back for our radio friends. Chad, you knew jujitsu prior to this attack on,
Yes.
on you that night
Thankfully,
in 2022.
saved my life.
So how did that happen? Did you just take jujitsu? Did you want to be equipped for something?
Yeah, actually, in the military, I studied some martial arts, some kung fu, and combatives. We study combatives in the military. That's the latest iteration of hand-to-hand combat. And that's basically a lot of jujitsu and some judo. So when I got out years later, when I had time after kids kind of grew up a little bit, I came here to Bloomington Normal, and there's some great opportunities here in town for jujitsu. We got some great instructors here, and I studied under Professor Casey McCullough, and he has vast knowledge. He's a third degree black belt in jujitsu. He was actually the first blue belt in Illinois to start training back in the old days when it was hard to find instructors under Hapsimura. And his lineage is legitimate and goes back. So I've just studied it for about 7 years now. My oldest son also studies it. So thankfully I had that. Without it, I pity the person that comes across someone like James DeWitt. He would be a statistic right now, and my children would be fatherless. My wife would be without a husband 19 times, and that was with me defending myself.
God's got big plans for you. I don't know what they are. And I'm very excited to see what happens with the McLean County Board. There's some really awesome applicants. We are going to get into a couple of the applicants here. David Paul Blumenshine is one. We have Randy Knapp, Chad Berck. And then there's kind of an oddball, which we'll get to, Kathy Woods. And we'll talk about that one a little bit later. But when we come back, and we're going to be coming back for our radio friends here, we're going to get into his prior record, James DeWitt, because we haven't even really touched on that. I mean, there was a 2016 record that he had an arrest for stabbing. Yes. Was it 2 people or 1?
It's hard from the police report to determine. I know he at least stabbed 1 ISU student that had to drop out of college and moved back up to Chicago. Oh, which is a shame.
Tragic. Well, we're going to be back here in just about 10 seconds. You're listening to Cities 92.9. Like, love, share this video out with your friends. Why is there a media blackout? I wonder. Yes, Jacqueline, I wonder is that as well. Anybody want to field that one? I have lots of questions for the NPD. Me too. This should have never happened. I'm going to be right back. Good morning. Thanks so much for joining me. And we're doing a little something different on the Morning Buzz. I know. You're like, Kat, I really want my news. This is so much more important to your life than any news headline, I think, because this happened to a neighbor of yours in McLean County. He is actually a longtime McLean County resident, and he's an applicant for the McLean County Board, and he was forced to relive the trauma of being stabbed 19 times in his neighborhood, Ironwood. The Ironwood neighborhood, we're all familiar. Okay, it's in North Normal, and by a Democrat on the McLean County Board. And I upon investigating this story, reading the article from Gun Save Life, John Bach's story, then Diane Benjamin's story, the more I think about it, it would have taken a simple Google search from Elizabeth, because that's exactly what I did once I found out. A simple Google search, Chad Berck arrest, to find out that this was a traumatic thing for your family, and this is actually a nightmare that I would have. Everybody has your nightmare coming true on your front lawn. Some random guy stalking you forever for a long time. And eventually escalates to a point where he gets drunk and then brandishes a knife. And you're forced to defend yourself. And, I'm glad that you didn't become a statistic. I'm glad that your children have a father and your wife has her husband still. Being stabbed 19 times, God's got big plans for you, and I'm very excited. Folks, you can always see us live, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble at Cities 92.9. Text in 309-451-9299. Total media blackout on your story, Chad. I did a quick Google search, 2 stories, 2 articles. Now, before we took the break, I was telling you a little bit about his priors. So there's a police report, and he was actually arrested and charged. I think it was aggravated battery and attempted assault with a deadly weapon or something like that. And these are felonies. But eventually those charges were dropped.
Yes. Actually, one was dropped right away. And then the other one was downgraded from a felony to a misdemeanor. My charges are what you're referring to.
Oh, I was referring to the 2016 charges.
Oh, the 2016 James's
DeWitt.
2016 charges. Yes. Yeah, they were eventually just all dropped. I think, from what I understand, because the victims were not available to testify. One moved back to Chicago, and apparently the others were unable to testify for various reasons, of which there is no comment or anything written anywhere.
Yeah.
But from my understanding, you don't have to have that for the DA to still prosecute. You can still base off of what evidence you have. Witnesses, and you have obvious evidence. You have a knife, you have the injuries, you have photographs. It's all there. But it was dropped.
It was dropped in 2016. So this
An
story,
obvious hate crime.
Yeah, in 2016, he allegedly, right? I wasn't there, but I mean, there were stab wounds. There was a knife. He was charged with this. Those charges were dropped. Now, witnesses put him at the scene saying racial slurs, profanities at this interracial couple. She was white, and he said that she was a traitor to her race. I believe that's what it says in the police report.
Yes,
it's concerning that this guy is free, and that you were arrested instead after being stabbed 19
He
times.
cried victim the moment the cops arrived on the scene. He knew what to do. I couldn't talk fast enough because I wanted to say, I had my hand up to go, hey, officer. And he was going, I'm the victim. I'm the victim.
Yeah.
And my neighbor who came to help me was shaking his head. He couldn't believe it, because he's had dealings with James also, harassing him and his children. And they bought James's story over me, my wife, and 3 neighbors that live right around me. One is a retired Bloomington firefighter. One is a retired Air Force who was there that came and helped me. One, my neighbor just to the north of me, now retired, was at the time an active state police trooper and knew all about everything.
His priors. Yeah.
They didn't care. I even had 6 police reports previously. They didn't care that night. I was the bad guy that night.
And they put you in cuffs while you were bleeding.
I was in cuffs the moment they got there. I was treated as the bad guy the moment they got there. And one thing I did wrong, and I will never do again, is say anything on the scene. Just say, I want to cooperate, but I am not speaking until I have a lawyer. We can talk in the morning, because you're in shock. I was probably in shock for 3 days. Things are not clear in your mind. I remember, actually, you don't remember everything for a few days. And they even give a police officer in a shooting, they give them 3 or 4 days after a shooting because of shock and mental problems. So why can't they give a person that just went through what I did a few days, or at least a day? And
he had clear injury.
Clear injury. I'm bleeding. I'm standing there bleeding. I refused the first ambulance because my wife's a physician.
Mhm.
So we figured I'd just go in the house. She would evaluate me, either fixing me up, or we would go to the hospital.
Mhm.
Okay. We didn't want to have to pay for an ambulance.
Mhm.
So they called an ambulance. We said, no, that's okay. I didn't know I was getting arrested at that point. Later, because I said I knew jujitsu, thinking it would help me because I controlled him. I didn't want to be the aggressor, thinking that they thought I was going to, hurt him.
Mhm.
When I said jujitsu and military experience, you should have seen how scared those officers got. They were scared. Some of them, not there was great officers in MPD.
Yeah.
There's some great officers. I respect them highly. The resource officers,
But there's some bad ones.
Yeah, there's some that should not be here.
Mhm.
In normal.
Mhm.
They need to get another job.
Mhm.
But I respect MPD officers tremendously. They knew who they are, that I hold highly in regard. They're professional, highly trained, excellent guys. But there's a couple that they, for some reason, believe James, this convict with previous record, everything he said was
never convicted for anything. Well,
not
the
recently, but he has convicted of
trespassing.
Oh, and in Chicago, he's convicted of taking money from elderly people. Things. Oh, he has convictions in Chicago, Cook County, of stealing money from elderly and
See, I
and
just
all
looked
that.
at his McLean County record.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. You have to look in other counties.
Frauding elderly or whatever that charge is of elderly abuse.
Oh my.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my.
He's got records all over the United States and Arizona, DUIs and his record is big.
With priors. This is Cities 92.9. Be sure to go visit Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Rumble. This morning, I wanted to have Chad Berck in studio because there's been a media blackout on this story. And Elizabeth Johnston, I mean, I couldn't believe that she was asking you these questions about this arrest. The more I look into it, I just can't believe that they had you relive this trauma. And one thing I want to ask about before we get into the McLean County Board, you being an applicant, was where are you at today with these arrest charges? So, a misdemeanor. What does your record look like now? Is it completely clean?
No. There's obviously no conviction. The charges were dropped, but I haven't gone through the process of having it removed from my record. I don't know if I will. Maybe I will. At this point, I really don't care. Going through the court system was horrible. It was a nightmare. Nothing is easy. Just the bureaucracy of it. I never once got to say a word in my behalf, physically open my mouth. The morning after I was in jail and you wake up and it was during COVID. So I had to do the Zoom thing. They sit you down in front of a camera for the arraignment or whatever it is. They don't tell you, and you're supposed to have the free lawyer defendant. But luckily my wife, who is freaking awesome, I love her. I love you, babe. She showed up with my lawyer.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
When you were being arraigned?
When I was being arraigned, because I was not given a phone call. And you're not told how to use the phones. You have to evidently register on the phones and get registered into the system. And I asked at least a dozen times how to do it. And mind you, I'm still bleeding because they did take me to their hospital and their little first aid place in there. But I'm bleeding. I have 19 stab wounds.
Yeah.
The sheets are red. The inmates actually helped me.
Oh.
They were using toilet paper and paper towels because they were great guys in there. I tell you, they were helping me.
Yeah. It's terrifying. Like this is a nightmare coming true.
It is.
Where you know, you're sitting there bleeding and you're being treated like a criminal and you were on your front lawn.
Front lawn.
Front
When these
lawn.
guys heard that story, they're like, dude, you're out of here tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
You know, they're telling me everything. I said, you know, here's what happened. They're like, yeah, you're golden. You know, you're not going to get bail, or you're not going to have to worry about bail and everything. And I said, what is that? You know, what do I do? They're like, just don't say anything. Your lawyer will handle that in there. Anyway, they were great guys.
Mhm.
Some of them guys are in there for nothing, and it's just because they financial.
Mm.
So there is a lot of things to our system that needs fixing,
Mhm.
but that's a whole nother
Conversation.
thing to talk about.
Mhm.
But so I show up on that Zoom camera for the judges there, and I guess they're deciding something about my bail. I think it was a bail hearing
Mhm.
or release. And I was thinking, okay, I'm going to get to say what happened. Nope. No, I was told that actually the CO, the correctional officer, he said, just sit there and don't just look innocent. So I did.
Yep.
Didn't get to say anything, you know.
Wow.
I'm like just sitting there, messy hair, you know, just like, my glasses are still bent up, you know, from the fight and everything. Sitting there like some whacked out drug addict,
Yeah.
you know. And the judges are doing theirs, and the lawyers are doing their thing, and my public defender, waste of time. She was like, "Yeah, we'll plea it to a misdemeanor, take it, and it's, you know, blah blah blah."
Take it. Yeah, no, I defended myself.
Everything's deals.
Deals.
Like,
Yeah.
Get out of here. Thankfully, my lawyer's like, yeah,
we're getting this. We're getting these charges dropped.
Phil is, dude, awesome. Because I got screwed. They were supposed to give me, James ordered or filed for an order of protection against me.
Okay.
Well, evidently in the paperwork, I didn't get that paperwork to show up for the court hearing for the emergency order of protection. So I couldn't defend myself against that. So it was automatically made permanent. Well, once it's permanent, plenary, that's a 2-year. Well, within a few hours of that, I got a text message on my phone that said, you need to turn in all your guns and your FOID card.
Wow.
Talk about another nightmare. So within, you know, a day of getting stabbed, I'm driving somewhere. I can't remember where I was going, Menards, and the sheriff's deputies are like, hey, you need to bring your FOID card into normal PD, and here's some more paperwork. And it was for another thing. So I'm asking them, I'm like, hey, is this legitimate or is this, you know, a fake text? And they're like, no, that's real. You got to do that within a couple of days or the state police will show up. I said, oh man, you know, and I was telling him what to do, what happened. He's like, no compassion. You got no compassion.
Yeah.
From anybody. So it was just one snowball negative.
And it was just snowballing. You're trying to deal with the bureaucracy of everything and trying to clear your name and trying to tell people that, hey, this is self-defense. And they arrested me. This guy actually brandished a knife in my front yard and threatened my life. When you brandish a knife, that means that I'm going to stab you. And you made that decision to not run.
Yes.
And you know that I don't have any training. I wouldn't know when to run. Me in that situation, I'd run. I probably would run because I'm scared, or I'd be scared because look at me, right? I'm like chicken arms. I'm like he's 6'2". I'd run. But I can run pretty fast, you know, and I would try to run away. I think in that situation, but I don't know if that would necessarily be the good thing. Maybe he's faster than me, right?
That's what I was afraid of. I have bad knees, and if I fell, you know, the biggest fear.
And where would you go? Home, or you'd run back up to your door?
Up to my door, and if I fell, and I was incapacitated,
or if you struggled with the door handle, or say you actually make it in, he barges in, busts down the door, then your whole family's dead.
And I was the only thing stopping him from getting to my family. I don't know if that was on his mind. I don't know.
How
But
could
that
you?
was on my mind.
Yes.
That was all that was on my mind, is stopping this person from getting into my house, because I knew his prior.
Mm-hmm.
And that today is still a nightmare I wake up with,
Mm-hmm.
that I fail in that.
Mm-hmm.
I wake up sweating with that nightmare that I fail stopping him.
Mm-hmm.
And it still affects me.
Mm-hmm.
My youngest sleeps with a Nerf gun today and a lightsaber, because it has affected him so much.
Mm.
And that's my failure as a parent, to protect him.
Sorry. It's hard,
But
and I don't want to make you relive this
no,
trauma, but I think that it's so important, Chad, to get your story out,
yeah,
because
it
there's been
is
a media blackout on how you were arrested by normal PD for self-defense, and that's not me saying that it was wrong. A judge
a judge,
that dropped your charges.
yeah, who had to kick James out because James became irate,
Mm,
and the judge had a lot of patience for James.
mm,
James disrespected him, and my neighbors came on my behalf and talked. Each testified, which talk about that makes me emotional. My wife and I were in tears that whole court, hearing our neighbors talk and the letters we received on our
yeah.
behalf that the judge read. Hearing that,
Mm-hmm.
wow, the effect you have on people and you don't even realize. But the judge said that he has never seen, and he said that this is why he got into law, to see a neighborhood come out and defend a person.
Mm-hmm.
This is what it's about.
Mm-hmm. So we have to take a quick break, folks. But we're talking with Chad Berck. He's a longtime McLean County McLean County resident, and he's actually filled out an application to serve on our McLean County board. And the reason why I had him in studio today was because there was a media blackout, and I mean, in a public forum, Elizabeth Johnston asks you this question, and she claims to. I don't know if she's a therapist. I think that she serves on the mental health committee. I'd have to get my cheat sheet here. For the
She
McLean County
definitely got my
board.
PTSD going.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah. Well, she definitely got our PTSD PTSD going. I saw it in your face,
Yeah.
And you can't fake that. When I was watching, the room fell silent. There was this hesitation in her voice to even ask the question, and shame on the Republic. I'm not going to speak for you at all, Chad. I don't want to do that. This is the Morning Buzz show. Shame on the Republicans who did not shut that question down. You should have done your due diligence. I don't know if they had the questions prior or what, but the moment she went with that line of questioning and the moment you started answering, I would have piped up on that mic. If I was sitting up there on that board, I would have piped up on that mic and I would have said, "Oh, we're done with this line of questioning." And I would have said, "Chad, you can answer if you'd like. Uh, but you have no obligation to answer. This should have been done outside of the public forum."
Mm-hmm.
A stabbing victim, like there's photographed evidence that you were stabbed. Whatever the end result was, that's real. You were stabbed, and you're going to question a victim of a violent assault in a public forum to be a McLean County board member. I would have emailed you. I would have figured out a way to contact you prior to the meeting and said, "Hey, do you mind if I ask this question prior to this meeting? I'd like to get this out in the public forum, or something." I
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was odd. So then I started digging and I started to try to find out more about the story, and I just saw that there was nobody who covered it except a couple of folks, Diane Benjamin, John Bach. Go read their articles. We've got one up at cities929.com. But I wanted to have you in studio, Chad. We do have to take a quick break. You guys can see us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. We're going to continue this story. We haven't even gotten into why you want to be a McLean County
No.
board applicant or on the McLean County board. I also want to talk a little bit about, self-defense.
Sure.
What what can citizens in Normal do to take precautions to not go what you went through?
Sure.
Uh,
There's a lot.
where you're arrested, where you're going through all this bureaucracy, trying to really drop these charges. So we'll go through that step by step for you, so that way you're equipped if something like this were to happen in your neighborhood. I'll be back, Chad. We'll be back on the other side. This is Cities 92.9. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. You can text me at 309-451-9299. I always love including your guys' comments. Now, we've got some commenters here, and Chad, and if you don't want to respond, uh, just say, no, but let's not respond.
Okay.
So here's a text. They say, when the police arrive on a scene of something like this, the procedure is to usually take both into custody so they can sort things out, either stop criticizing NPD or stop your back the blue stuff. So here at Cities 92.9, I mean, I've got a flag right back here that it's the thin blue line,
Sure.
right? And I'm curious your response to this comment. You know, Wait, were you guys both taken into custody? I don't think so.
He was not taken into custody per se. He was taken to the hospital and treated.
Mhm.
I was taken into custody and arrested.
Because he was not in cuffs.
No, he was put into cuffs initially just for security purposes,
Mhm.
safety purposes, but he was released immediately afterwards.
Okay, so he wasn't charged. He was
no charges.
He was in
No charges.
Wow. So I don't know if I don't know, Texter. I'm gonna just be honest with you. I don't know if procedure was followed the way that it's supposed to. It doesn't make sense how this guy did not go through what Chad also went through. He should have been looked at as a possible suspect and possibly the one who uh, was the one, because he was the one who engaged Chad. He brandished that firearm, or that, not the firearm, the knife.
knife.
Sorry, excuse me.
Yeah.
He brandished the knife.
Right. What the police told me at the time was the reason I was being arrested is because it moved into a public property, which if you fight on public property, normally both parties are arrested.
Mhm.
It's like fighting from a bar. If it moves from the bar into public property, you're
Mhm.
arrested. Since I initiated, even though he brandished the knife, which is threatening,
Mhm.
it's like in the Old West, once you pull irons, that was a threat of bodily harm. Pulling a knife should have been enough for me, but in Illinois, it's not. Because we don't have castle doctrine. You have to have on your property or in your home. You can't even be in your car, from what my understanding is. So
Wow.
if he had came in my home or onto my step of my home, yes. So me being in my yard and going towards him, even though he was coming towards me, I was told by the police officer I had to have waited for him to attack me.
Oh, it's baked in the cake. That's what it is.
crazy.
It's the laws
Yes.
on the books. It's baked into the cake to where you, the victim, are made into the criminal, and the criminal, it's pro-criminal. It's pro-criminal laws.
Yeah, even though my home has boundaries. Yes, I understand it. I have boundaries. I have property lines. But when you're talking self-defense, my home is my area in my opinion. My opinion is not law, though. See, if a guy comes around and he's walking around with a gun, he may not pull it, but he's walking around with a gun looking at me bad. That's a threat. Okay, I'm not going to wait for him to come on my property to make some sort of defensive move.
No.
Would you? Would any sane person? No.
No.
But in Illinois, you better wait for them to come in your house.
Oh.
Or you're going to jail.
So that's where I kind of want to go, the direction with this McLean County resident. He's also a McLean County board applicant. We're talking with Chad Berck. This was a media blackout, his story about how he was stabbed 19 times. The charges dropped. The judge himself said that this was wrong. Okay, so Texter, you're sitting there saying, oh, you got to take down the back the blue stuff. Well, you should message the judge and say, hey, judge, you probably shouldn't talk about the judicial system in a negative way either. So
and I 100% support law enforcement because they have one of the hardest jobs in the world, and that's coming in at 2:00 in the morning to two guys fighting on the ground with a knife.
Who
and
wants to
trying to
do that?
figure that out. Who wants to do that?
Nobody.
Because I guarantee, Texture, you're probably not going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a hard job because they're by themselves in a car driving around all night dealing with this stuff.
Mm.
Worse.
Mm-hmm.
So kudos to those guys.
Yeah.
I wasn't law enforcement. I was military, and we had a hard job. Those guys do it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
They walk into homes that are dealing with situations that are rough, and they got to separate this and be the judge sometimes right there in the moment. It's an impossible job.
Well, and I
support them 100%.
The thing is I don't understand why you were arrested on the scene. You had the stab wounds. Okay. And then all of a sudden, he's, maybe they were both taken in, but you were placed under arrest right away.
Because thinking that doing the right thing and talking, thinking I was innocent because I was attacked, I talked. James kept quiet and claimed victim. He, in this case, was smarter by being quiet and only saying what needed to be said. I'm the victim. I learned through this, the less you say, the better. You
have the right to remain silent.
Just say.
So you recommend, say you're in a situation like this. God forbid I ever get into a situation like this. You recommend I stay silent.
What you say? I will cooperate 100% with you, officer, but I really don't want to make any statements until I have my lawyer present tomorrow. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's the best thing to say. Mm-hmm. If we could do this tomorrow, great. Hopefully they don't arrest you and take you to the jail. They might just give you a ticket or a letter of appearance or whatever these can be nowadays, depending on the severity of the crime. Mm-hmm. If it's a shooting, stabbing, yeah, you're probably going to get arrested and, and booked. But don't say anything other than I am 100% going to work with you, cooperate, but I'm not saying anything further until I have my lawyer present, because you're in shock and you're going to say things and not remember it. No matter what you think, you're not going to remember it clearly. Yeah.
So stay silent. Another thing that happened to you was your guns were taken away from you.
Yes. I got a letter and a text and various ways of communication from the state where they voided my FOID and concealed carry. I had to fill out a form that you get where you have to put all of your weapons that you have. You have to put their serial number and information down. Take it to the police station. They sign it, verifying that you do not have any firearm in your possession. That's what it says. You do not have any firearm in your possession. Very key terminology. Doesn't mean you have firearms that you own. They just cannot be in your possession because you don't have a FOID card.
Right.
So you can take them to anyone that has a FOID and take them to that house, and they can be there. They just can't be in your home wherever you live because they're in your possession if they would be. So you have to remove them, and you have a certain period of time to do that in, or and get that form back to the Illinois State Police through various means, email, text, fax, whatever. Getting that form was shocking because I wasn't thinking I would have to go through all that process. And then to get your weapons back. Now, if this happens to you under the new law, you don't get your weapons back once that happens. Then there is a process if you do it within 30 days. I had an impossible feat to get my weapons back because I didn't know about it happening. It had exceeded the 30 days. It was horrendous. It took a Herculean effort by Dan Calkins, John Bach, GSL. It was very difficult. But So I took the form. I refused to write my guns and serial numbers down. It's no business of the police, the state, anybody, what
Mhm.
guns I own or anything. Guns don't have a title like a car does.
Mhm.
So I don't believe that anybody's information, ATF, it's not state police's information to know.
Mhm.
So I took a empty form, signed it, and took it to the police station and said, here's my form. I don't have any weapons in my possession, just like the form says. And they weren't going to sign it. They said, no, we need to know every firearm you own and where they are. And it also says on there where the weapons are located. I said, no, that's none of your business.
Wow.
And so I had 4 or 5 police at the end of this conversation. And I'm thinking, I'm going to be arrested again. Here it goes. I'm nervous. To be honest, I was very nervous. And this is 10, 20 minutes. And I keep saying the same thing. I do not have any weapons, firearms in my possession. They
Mhm.
keep asking me, no, we want to know every gun you have,
Oh my.
the serial number, and where they are.
Chad, that is not okay. I don't because here's the thing that people forget that police officers, law enforcement, they take an oath to the
To the
Constitution,
Constitution.
and you cannot, it shall not be infringed. Okay,
Yes.
if you are enforcing a law that is it is unconstitutional, then you are in the wrong there, officer.
I was not going to open up that.
Hmm.
If I started talking Constitution, I knew I'd lose because this is one of those crazy fringe guys. I just kept saying what's on that paper.
Yeah,
I said, look, it says not in my
in
possession,
possession.
and that I had them.
I'm not giving you my
I'm not
serial
giving any of
numbers.
that information. It's none of your business. I don't have them in my possession. I'm not breaking the law.
Mm,
You don't need to know what guns I have. And they said, well, when did you buy a gun last? I said, 10 years ago. It's none of
mhm,
your business. You don't
mhm.
need to know when I bought a gun or what gun it was. Look it up because you
Yeah,
can't look it up. You shouldn't be able to look it up. FBI might has backgrounds, but you shouldn't know what gun I own.
mhm,
Technically,
yeah.
I know they do. So eventually, the form got signed. John Bach said that's probably the only form he's ever seen signed blank.
Huh. Wow. Well, folks, we have to take a quick break. Yes, we are doing something a little bit different on Cities 92.9 this morning. No headlines. We are just talking with Chad Berck. I brought this up because there's been a media blackout on this story, and I think that it needs to come to light. And I also think that it was bizarre that the Elizabeth Johnston, the Democrat on the county board, asked you the question about your arrest without, looking into it a little bit further. I want to give her the benefit of the doubt and
Yeah,
just have her, maybe she just truly didn't know. But
perhaps.
we do want to talk about the McLean County Board as well and
Okay.
your application there, why you applied. We have to take a quick break, but I'll be back with Chad on the other side. This is Cities 92.9. Some more things you might want to consider for self-defense if you find yourself in a situation like this, and you guys will want to find out why Chad Berck is getting into the McLean County Board biz. That's next. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. I'm going to get to a couple of your comments here. Adam, he says uh, that you got stabbed 19 times and also went to jail. And then he said, I'm moving to Canada. Yeah, that's my biggest fear is, if I ever were to find myself in a situation like this, um, am I going to get in trouble for defending myself? And self-defense insurance, is that something you had prior to this altercation?
Yes. Without it, we probably couldn't have had the lawyer that I had, or I would be in tremendous amount of debt because luckily I had concealed carry, what I thought was just concealed carry insurance, and come to find out it is a self-defense insurance, Daniel Defense, which is one of them. There's many out there, and I recommend checking them all out. I think there's 7 or 8. There might even be more now, but there's a few big ones that recommend. I think they're on the GSL webpage or the NRA webpage, Second Amendment webpage. You can Google them. They're fairly inexpensive for the benefit that you get, peace of mind, because you call them after the incident and they take care of everything. You don't have to pay a dime. The lawyer, they give you advice, counseling.
Wow.
It's all taken care of because it is very expensive. If it's a gun offense, you're going to jail.
If you defend yourself with a gun.
If you defend yourself with a gun, you're going to jail. Period. At least
you defended yourself with jujitsu and you went to jail.
And I went to jail. But in Illinois, the climate we live in now, a person that chooses to defend themselves is not going to be looked upon kindly.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they want you to call 911. And unfortunately, that takes time, and you may not have the time. So you have to prepare yourself in some way. And it's
just so wild to me, Chad. And, I'm getting emotional. I just get so emotional just thinking about it, because how could anybody look at the situation and just say, nope, that guy's the bad guy? And I mean, it was 11:30 at night, and he was in front of your house.
My house.
He was in front of your house. Who does that? Who goes to somebody's house at 11:30 at night? Who does that? And not even like my friends wouldn't even come to my house at 11:30 at night, like people I'm friendly with. This guy clearly was not a friend of yours. He was combative with your family on multiple occasions prior to this. Stalked your family, harassed your family. He was not welcome. You told him several times and had recordings of it. Go home, James. Go home, James. Go home, James. So it's very clear that you would not be a friend of mine, James.
Correct.
So why would you be at my house at 11:30 at night? You're there because it's your house.
Yes.
You're out there walking or taking your dog out like a normal guy.
Yes.
Just a normal citizen. And and you're met with a guy who brandishes a knife. You got to make that split second decision. Am I going to try my chances running and going into my house where my kids are sleeping and bring this guy potentially into my house where he's going to bust in? Is he going to be faster than me? I know jujitsu. I'm going to take that knife away and I'm going to put him in a sleeper hold and I'm going to subdue him so that way I'm not going to die.
Correct.
So that way I don't die. My kids sleeping inside don't die. It's just wild to me. We're going to be back. Hold on one second. It's wild to me. We're on the live stream, Cities 92.9, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. You guys can see us there. Chad Berck, he's joining me here in studio, and I'd love to have Elizabeth Johnston on. I just really would. I'd love to ask her what provoked you into asking that question, because I can't wrap my head around it. Why she would ask you the question about this arrest A simple Google search would have told you all you really needed to know, because
Mhm.
you Google it and then there's a couple of articles. Now, there's not a lot.
Okay.
There's a couple of articles. There's John Bach, Gun Save Life, Diane Benjamin, BLN News. They covered this. I didn't know. I had no idea.
Sure.
And they covered this, and you look at the Ring door cam. You hear you on audio screaming for your life, "Help me, help me, help me." This is at 11:30 at night. The guy's in front of your house,
Right.
and that's all according to, police. He's in front of your house at 11:30 at night. Who does that? This guy has priors. 2016, he was accused and arrested, charged with stabbing people, an interracial couple, saying
Mhm.
racial slurs. Those charges were dropped. Has prior convictions in other counties, other states.
Mhm.
I just don't see how you arrive on the scene and say, "Yep, that guy's the bad guy. Let's put him in cuffs. Let's charge him and take him into custody and bring him to jail after he's been stabbed 19 times." I don't see it, and it's just wild to me. But I'm so glad that you had self defense insurance.
Me too.
So tell me about self defense insurance. We've got a couple of minutes left this
Sure.
hour, and then we're just going to continue. And I'm going to have you for the show. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, self-defense insurance, originally, it started out, I believe, my understanding is as concealed carry insurance, and it's kind of evolved into the full dimension of just self-defense insurance because with the current climate that we live in now with law, you have some states that are very protective of those that defend themselves. And then we have other states and areas, cities that are not. They want you to depend on the law enforcement, which unfortunately, because of the lack of funding in a lot of areas, the lack of support, they're overwhelmed.
Well, I've got a commenter here. He says 30 to 45 minutes show up time for police.
There you go. In some
I'd have
cases,
to look at the average time in Chicago. Forget about it, right?
yeah, and in some
You know, the
cases,
cops aren't coming.
um, it's seconds where you have to have a reaction or someone there. And if you have to depend on someone to defend your life or your family, and you need a minute or two, that's way more time than it takes. That attack that I was involved in was total duration about 10 or 12 minutes. And I was defending myself throughout the entire time. I was exhausted at the end, and I'm in shape from doing jujitsu. I'm not in great shape. I'm not in fighting shape,
Hmm.
military shape, or anything by far. But I'm in above average shape for a man of 50 years old. And I was exhausted in the end from just restraining a man, because I chose not to end it. I chose mentally throughout the entire time not to end the altercation.
What do you mean by end it? Kill him?
End it. Yeah, end him.
Mm.
I chose that.
Yeah, because you
And
put
in
him in
it,
sleeper hold.
because I subdued him, put him
Hmm.
in what they call a sleeper hold or a choke hold, as it's been in the media a lot. It's a subduing. You subdue them. It's a control. If I had a gun, there's no choice. Which I am a concealed carry holder. I didn't
Hmm.
have one on me, but who's to say if I had one, that man, that his life would be ended. I chose not to because it wasn't necessary. I don't want to do that to a person. It wasn't necessary. I wasn't like him. I wasn't after a person's life. I believe he wanted my life
Mm.
for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I know for
Well,
a
oh
fact
gosh.
he
I
was.
mean, he was giggling
He was
while he was
giggling and telling
stabbing
me,
you.
"I'm going to gut you like a pig." But I knew a few reasons in my head. It was strange how calm I felt a wave come over me. I know it was the Holy Spirit, the calmness that came over me throughout it, that um, I did not want to take this man's life,
Hmm.
that just control him. And the time, no one was coming to the door as I was hollering, help, help. And it was it was like hollering down a hole, a bottomless hole. There was nobody, and time just kept passing. And when you're in a any type of emergency situation and your adrenaline's running, you know how time is so much slow. It seems slow. It felt like it was an hour.
Yeah. Well, we have to cut to break really quick, but we're going to pick this conversation back up with Chad Berck on the other side. You're listening to Cities 92.9. Good morning. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in to the live stream. Yes, a little bit different of a show this morning, but I think it's so important. And, things are running through my mind, Chad. There have been several national news stories surrounding people who had it much worse than what you eventually came out victorious over this. And you mentioned the Holy Spirit. I really do believe that God wants you for something. He kept you here for some reason. And there's the fellow in New York City, and I'm just thinking of him. He actually subdued. I'd have to look up their names. I don't remember their names, but he put him in a sleeper hold.
Yes.
And brought him down to the ground.
And
on the
subway.
Yes, on the subway.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
I
look
think
up
he was
their
a
name.
Marine.
Yeah, he was a Marine.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't know what exactly happened to him. I know he's been charged with
He's
a
gone
lot.
through some legal issues. Yeah, I
Yeah,
believe so.
because he eventually did kill the guy.
Oh, right. I think he did pass away. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there was other health issues with that gentleman too. If I'm not mistaken, he had some health issues, but yeah, I think eventually he did pass away.
Yeah. I'm gonna look up his name really quick. Kill me if I don't. Jordan Neely. Jordan Neely. Daniel Penny is the guy who held Jordan Neely in a chokehold for I think it was 15 minutes while he was on the subway, something like that. And he had prior training. He was a Marine. Daniel Penny did. And Daniel Penny, I'm pretty sure that he was charged with all kinds of felonies because he actually killed the guy. Do you think if you would have ended James DeWitt, if you would have ended it there, do you think you would be here today talking with me?
No, I would be in prison. I would be in prison, most definitely, or fighting in court systems. Maybe out on bail, but I would definitely not be a free man. I'd be fighting for my life. Most definitely, they would have charged me. Just like Wisconsin with the young man that went through all that at the riots, shooting his way out of that. He
in Texas,
up in Wisconsin a few years back with the gun. I can't remember his name right now, but he fought through the court systems, and they're still pursuing.
Oh,
him.
Kyle Rittenhouse.
Kyle Rittenhouse. It's all because they do not like people to defend themselves. They want you dependent.
And in the moment that you opened your mouth, told the truth, and said, "Hey, I have training in jiu-jitsu,"
that was when
light bulbs came off for the cops.
Yeah, it changed their demeanor. A couple of them. I'm not saying all, but there was a couple of them that didn't like that.
Yeah.
And they just started thinking differently.
Well, and, Daniel Penny's case and, a quick update on that case, folks. Daniel Penny's lawyers, they asked the judge to dismiss the case. Several of the subway, and much like your case, several of the subway witnesses provided testimony. They said that they were going to die. And they said that they feared their life.
Sure.
And they showed up for Daniel Penny.
Them.
Now they're fighting really hard. And he's accused of killing this homeless guy.
Right.
and he's been painted as some sort of hero.
Right.
However, I think he
it's
had,
unfortunate that a man lost his life. It's a
yes.
horrible thing. But when you have other people who are at risk of losing their lives and you defend those people, you should not be put at risk of being the criminal.
Hmm.
You're defending, the whole word defending, you're a shield. So that person probably has a mental health issue, which is not being treated
Hmm.
because of whatever our climate is today with mental health is a whole nother issue too.
Mm.
It's a shame.
Mm.
But that man that defended those people on that train should not be punished for defending people.
Yeah. We're going to be back for our radio friends. Folks, if you're watching right now, go ahead and smash the like button. Share this out with your friends. We'll be back here on The Buzz. Daniel Penny. That's the name that was running through my head. He was on the subway, and this is a different story than that of Chad Berck, who joins me in studio this morning. And I said, hey, we're going to do all 3 hours. We're going to have a special this morning with Chad Berck where we dive into a story that was missed. And I'm sorry, I feel like I almost have to apologize to you because,
No.
I live in this district and, I feel ashamed that I have a McLean County board member in my district, District 5, who would have asked you a question that made you relive something in a public forum like that. Without the consent of you prior. Before I had you come on air, I asked,
Of course, yeah, it was
hey,
great. Thank you.
would it be okay for me to ask you this to come on? But in a public forum like that, like there's nowhere for you to run or hide.
No, there wasn't.
Right? You can't just say I'm not answering. I guess you could have, but it would have.
And I can't say I was surprised. I expected it, but I was still shocked that they actually asked it.
Mm-hmm. Now
if that makes sense.
Yeah, this was at the executive committee meeting.
Yes.
This was on Columbus Day, Monday, and she asked the Democrat. She was the presiding chair. Now we have Catherine Metzger, who was elected to be the chairman to fill the chairman vacancy left there by John McIntyre, who resigned abruptly. The County Board District 5 seat still needs to be filled. You've applied to fill that seat.
Yes.
And then she, asks you some questions. And among those questions was something about your arrest. And I didn't know you were arrested until watching that. And then I watched it. And then I was like, well, let me do a quick Google search. Let me do my own digging.
Right.
And then I found all of the evidence that proves, and the judge said that you were innocent and that it was a shame that this happened to you.
Yes.
And that the judicial system failed you.
Yes.
So, yeah, I just took a quick Google search on my behalf to find out the truth of what happened. Thank you to John Bach and Diane Benjamin. Yep. I think it's odd that do you think it's odd that no media has reached out to you even after this public forum meeting? No media.
Just you. Just you.
Just me.
Just you.
So, I mean, in a public, that's just wild to me.
I have to say, WGATL did a great article. They were very fair in their write-up about it.
Yeah.
I was pleasantly surprised on that. That was nice.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you sent the email to me, and that was great. But no, Panagraph hasn't said anything. No one else.
Yeah, well, and I think that, and I'm just going to give you some insight into what, the reason why, because I think that I owe you that. The reason why I wanted to have you in studio was because I think I have an obligation. Once you hear something like that, I was arrested for self-defense. The guy stalked me and my family. That's the story. And then the story, I mean, that's not even the story. Like, that's what people need to know about, that the Democrat on the board asked you about this and that this even happened to you. And then I'm like looking and nobody else has covered this at all.
When it happened, I believe I sent emails to the city council, the sheriff, the county, and nobody cared. They didn't care about us.
Your
Yeah.
representatives.
When it happened, saying, look, this is what's happening. This is not fair for us. And is there anything you can do?
Mm-hmm.
And we never heard back from any. They either just ignored it outright, or said, wrong jurisdiction. No compassion. We won't even write a letter on your behalf. The only one that helped was Dan Calkins in any way. He was awesome, helping me get my guns back. But locally, it was like it was a hot potato for some reason. Nobody replied. Nobody helped except John and Diane. They helped me flip the narrative.
Yeah. The narrative that was spun against you is as if you were the bad guy in this situation, and that's why I brought up Daniel Penny. And I do want to get to how you want to change the county, how you want to change that. I think that if I was up there and I heard Elizabeth, and I told you this in the 7:00 hour, if I was up there as a McLean County board member and I heard that question, I would have said, whoa.
Mm-hmm.
I would have said, Chad, stop me if this is inappropriate, but I don't think that this line of questioning is appropriate for a public forum. He's a victim of a stabbing, and done some due diligence, right? I don't know. I think that the moment I would have said, whoa, you guys, you need to stop. And
well, basically, her whole question started out with hearsay. The whole, I talked to residents of Ironwood. Well, I can say, well, I've talked to residents of Ironwood too, when I replied to her and said, and they don't like you.
Yeah.
Anyone can say that. That's meaningless question. And and they say that you're aggressive or your temperament's bad. That meant nothing. I could have came back with something.
Yeah, well, the whole question was designed around your temperament. And she was trying to say that, hey, neighbors of Ironwood are concerned about your temperament, and part of your role on the county board is
concerned about my temperament. She wanted to bait me into becoming emotional. She wanted an emotional response, and it takes a tremendously more than her to get me to become emotional. When a guy stabbing me doesn't really get me emotional.
Mm-hmm.
My children in danger will get me emotional.
Yeah.
But she's not going to get me emotional.
Yeah.
And that's what she wanted.
Well, yeah.
And shame on her.
Yeah. Shame. Yes. And, and I'm going to just take it a step for shame on the board members who allowed the question. A question formed in a form of hearsay. Provide me the names of these Ironwood neighbors, right?
And there might be a few, because we probably differed on funding Unit 5, because all that back in the day there were signs out, and we have differences of opinion, and there might be a couple that I don't want Chad on the board because of political differences, and good, that's their right.
Mm-hmm.
Fine, but don't put it in the context of his temperament.
Yes.
And I can guarantee you that it's not because of that.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and then you had to try to clarify what she was asking, and you said, hey, are you asking about the arrest? Because are you asking about my temperament? Are you asking about my arrest? Yeah. So you clarified, and you were like, are you asking about my arrest? And she goes, yes.
So
she whispers
what she wanted. Yeah. She wouldn't. I couldn't really hear her because I don't know if she didn't have the mic right, or if she didn't want to actually say the word arrest. I had to really kind of guess.
Yeah.
And it wasn't about temperament. It was about, she wanted the arrest question. That's what it was.
Yeah. And I really just wanted to get to, what do you want to see happen in this county? Is your experience? I think that this is a totally new, and a new, I didn't know. We've done an interview before, and I asked you your intentions of running for the board. I think that having an experience like this gives you a little bit more insight into what needs to be changed. The
Hmm.
McLean County Board, the Justice Committee, they work a lot with the Sheriff's Office
Sure.
and the McLean County Jail. There's only a few things that the McLean County Board members do, right?
It's really not a lot. They just
it's not so
they,
much.
they just make sure that the money goes to the right places. And the rest is handled either by the townships, the boards of those local areas, or the bureaucrats that run it, the
Mhm.
administration. But they can make sure that the budgets are correct
Mm,
and set. So what fiscal responsibilities they have are vital.
mm,
Make sure that the statutes are followed. So my passions are here in McLean County is mental health. That's a huge benefit that we can offer. Uh, I don't know. I haven't seen the numbers of budgets and things to know if we're 100% efficient, everything's getting where it needs to be, who they're working with, if they're working with the free clinic here in town, if they're working with Carl, if they're maintaining everything, how many social workers, if they're using Medicare and Medicaid and all that. But that's one thing I want to really dig in and
mm,
see if they're offering services where it needs to be, if they're working with the jail to get the those guys out of the jail and into other services, because the jail I know was having issues at one point in time with mental health in
mhm.
there when they don't need to be.
Yeah, well, and I remember having, I think it was John Sandage at the time. It
It
might
was
have even
John,
been Matt Lane, but there was an issue with the state. So
the state. Yeah,
there were really bad inmates, like people who were mentally needing to go to a state mental
state
health,
facility. Hmm.
and what JB Pritzker did, and this is just a consequence of elections, right? What
Hmm.
JB Pritzker did was truly evil. And during COVID, they shut down the mental health facilities, these
Yeah,
state-run facilities, and they weren't able to get them over to these state-run facilities. So
right.
they were in a place where they're not equipped
At
really to
all.
take care of somebody in that mental state. These state-run facilities would have been. It was a whole issue. DHS, the department, or not DHS, it's Human Services,
Department
Department
of
of
Human
Human Services.
Services.
They were in on this, and it was a whole thing. I'd have to look it up, but yeah, the point is, JB shut them down, and it caused a really big issue for our local
Yes.
facilities to try to help the inmates who were mentally ill.
And
Like,
not only is it hurting the mental ill patient residents and you say criminals, but they're mentally ill.
mhm,
So they're not, yeah,
they need a
they
different.
need a whole different service. But it's the other inmates that are in there too are suffering because they're having to be put together. And I was in there.
Mhm,
It might have only been for 24 hours, but I seen things
mhm.
that I want to just take a look at and hope to alleviate by getting that fixed.
Yeah, and putting the monies where
Putting the
the
money where
sheriff's
it needs to
office
be.
needs it.
Hopefully I can make it do something to help.
Mm,
Okay.
mental health,
In that regard. So mental health is a big one.
fiscal, you mentioned.
The fiscal, take a look at the fiscal issue, making sure that the budgets are where they need to be. Fiscal, I can't work constitutionally so much because it's mandated by the state constitution. And that's all the county does is follow the state at the local level.
Mm,
That's all county boards do.
mhm,
So I'm bound by the state rules, regulations.
mhm,
So within those binds, but mental health is a big one. The nursing home here in town is a great resource. We have one of 3 in Illinois.
mm,
We've got to use that to the fullest.
mhm,
It's there. Let's make it a diamond in Illinois.
mm,
The elderly are not taken care of the way they need to be. I was a licensed nursing home administrator for a while. My mom has been one for 50 years.
mm.
It's kind of a near and dear for me. I know it's not a constitutionally thing, but it's a service
Yeah,
that benefits the community. And being a local government, we have to be more compassionate. And as a village, they always took care of the elderly.
Yeah.
Villages took care of elderly. You took care of the children, while the people went and got the food, and the women cooked. Back in the day.
Yeah.
So you got to think of
bring it to community. Bring community back to government. I like that, and you're bringing that concept of community back to government, because right now I just don't feel, as a county board District 5 constituent, I just don't feel that there is this connection that we have with our government.
This is how every small government person should think of. You have to have the Constitution on your mind, but at a local level. It's a village. That's how you need to base all your decisions. This is my opinion, that it's just bigger. It's a village times magnitude of whatever. You got to take care of the elderly, because no one else does. They're usually forgotten.
Oh yeah.
And financially, that's the problem.
Yeah, well, and I was talking to some neighbors of mine, and they got their property tax bill in the mail, and they're on fixed income, and they're finding their property tax went up and up and up, and they can't pay it. So they are looking into moving out. Some neighbors that I was talking to, and I was like, wow, that's brutal.
It is brutal. When you can pay your mortgage off, but you can't pay your property tax. That happens a lot.
Yeah.
Because you have health bills.
Yeah.
Medical bills.
Well,
take over.
We have to take a quick break, and I'm so glad to have Chad Berck in studio. We've talked a lot about this this stabbing that happened. It was 19 stab wounds that Chad received from a man, James DeWitt, and James DeWitt was not arrested for that. However, Chad was arrested because he defended himself with jujitsu and put him in a sleeper hold, and did a fish hook to try to get his finger, Chad's finger, out of his mouth. And there was this fight that happened, and you were put in cuffs, bleeding. It went through hell. Went through hell. The judge even said the system failed you, and he said that the reason why he got into what he was getting into, that being a judge, was to see the community band together. So your neighbors came out and testified in your favor.
In my favor.
And what's kind of incredible is, Daniel Penny's story. I do want to come back to Daniel Penny. I opened up the segment here with Daniel Penny because all that's going through my mind is, this is a huge story. What you've got, it's sad that it happened to you, and I can't believe there's been this media blackout, but something similar happened to this gentleman, Daniel Penny. In fact, put this man, Jordan Neal.
Same exact experience, except his ended in the death of the criminal that attacked. He died.
And I mean, you told me you don't think you'd be sitting here talking to me today.
The way I was treated initially for the first half of my court cases, I was guilty. I was treated as I can't tell you how terrible I was treated.
Yeah. I'm glad you had that self-defense insurance. We're also going to talk a little bit about that on the other side. This is Cities 92.9, Chad Berck right across the way. If you guys want to see us live in studio, that's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. We are also going to talk about Kathy Woods. Yes, I've got to talk about Kathy Woods. She threw in an application, and I knew it was this Kathy Woods. I did a deep dive on her social media, found out that she's a volunteer. She says she's an activist. She's a volunteer. I just find it odd that she applied for a position that is of a Republican, like it has to be a Republican who fills the seat of John McIntyre because he was a Republican. I find it peculiar that she donated to a cause, Black Trans Lives Matter. It's a coalition. It's a far left coalition down in Texas. And she donated to that organization, and that's part of her volunteerism. So I find it odd that she does that, and she also claims to be Republican. We're going to talk about it on the other side. This is the Morning Buzz. Good morning. Hey, this is the Morning Buzz. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. We've got some commenters. They say mental illness and addiction, it's hurting people, it's killing people, innocent people, more now than ever. The government turns their head to it. That's somebody who's in the comment section, Adam. And then we also have a gentleman. He goes, great job, Chad. These new gun laws that Jelly Bean, that's JB. I call him Jelly Bean. JB has signed is against the U.S. Constitution. It's against him to do, or for him to do that. The Supreme Court already made it very clear that you cannot outlaw commonly used firearms. He did it anyway, and our Illinois Supreme Court upheld his decision.
Yeah.
So there's so many different things when it comes to the gun laws here in the state of Illinois that's just so unconstitutional. They took your firearms away. Gun saves lives. They did a article. You're a GSL member, aren't you, Chad?
Yes, I am. Very strong member. Yes.
So they came in, took all your guns away, and voided your FOID.
Voided my FOID. And it was a Herculean effort to get my FOID card and concealed carry back. Email after email. There's actually no process, official process. They claim that there is, but it's fiction with the Illinois State Police to get your FOID card back and concealed carry. So I contacted John Bach. He assisted me, put me in contact with Dan Calkins, and through his office, I was able to eventually, after much tribulation, because you don't get any contact back from the state police office of FOID cards and whatever. It's like an ethereal black box of nothingness whenever you try to contact them. And Dan Calkins' office contacted them, and lo and behold, after hearing my case, I talked with Dan about my case, and he was stunned also, as you are. I couldn't believe what all happened to me and my family. Great guy. He was able to get my FOID card back, reinstated. Shortly thereafter, my concealed carry just magically showed up in the mail. Wonderful. So I was able to get all my firearms back in my house. Magically appeared back in my home from their magic land that they were put in. And so that was taken care of, and that was a big process to get that back. So we now, with the new laws in Illinois, though, if you get arrested, I believe with any felony and your guns are confiscated, you do not get them back ever. They're gone.
If you get arrested with a felony.
Yes. It may even be a misdemeanor. I'll have to check the law again. GSL, John Bach, he has the answers to all that. You can probably find it answers on their webpage.
Yeah.
The law's changing so fast now. It's hard to keep up.
Well, and they're baking it into the cake to make you the criminal. You defended yourself against a man who stabbed you 19 times. You defended him, defended your family in your own front yard at 11:30 at night. He's there in your front yard. He brandishes a knife. You engage. You're the one who engages. You make the call. You say, hey, you know what? I can't outrun this guy. Right. Hey, if I run, I could fall, trip. He's got me. I'll die. Right. And then he'll go into my house. He'll kill my whole family is inside. I don't know what this guy's intentions are. In that split-second decision, you decided to go and engage him, and very calmly and coolly. I mean, you knew what you were doing because you did jujitsu.
Jiu-jitsu, yeah. We were both moving. He was moving towards me. I just decided to not wait for him to make
the first move,
to make contact in the first move. I decided to take the offense.
Well, and being trained in jiu-jitsu, do you want to wait for them to make the first move, or is it more helpful for you to make the first move if you're trained in jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, there's different technique. Judo is kind of what I went for. I went for a toss. I grabbed the knife hand and threw him down to the ground. I like gravity. I do a lot of the initial damage, but then he grabbed the other hand, grabbed the knife with his other hand. And I have to admit, like I said earlier, I underestimated him
in his ability.
in his ability, which was a big mistake on my part, which allowed him then, when I took his back and mounted, he was then allowed him to continue with the knife. So that's when I quit underestimating anything about him and went on the offense, and got serious in my submission attempts to
subdue him, and you put him in a sleeper hold.
What they call a sleeper hold.
And he actually fell asleep.
He did. I put him unconscious multiple times, actually, throughout. But you have to be very careful. Anything more than 5 or 6 seconds, you choke someone. It's an arterial choke. It's a blood choke, so it stops the flow of blood to the brain. 4 or 5 seconds, you hold that, they go unconscious. It doesn't stop your trachea. You're still breathing.
Yeah.
So it stops the flow of blood to the brain, and they go unconscious, just like passing out. A person does. You see in MMA when they do that, if you watch MMA fights, and he would fall unconscious and everything would stop. He'd go limp, and I try to get the knife, and it was dark, mind you, so I'm not able to see. I don't have my glasses on. Couldn't find a knife. Then he would start to wake up, so I'd have to go back, get the hold again. It's called a rear naked choke, and try to get it set up, not apply any pressure to it, and then he'd start, bam, here you go.
I can't even, because you've told me that he was giggling
throughout,
saying he wanted to gut you like a pig. Wow. And you survived. And you were put in cuffs and just going through hell. You got a good lawyer. He helped you. Gun saves lives.
Great. Yeah, Phil Finnegan's office.
Phil Finnegan.
Him and his father both, man. They great guys. Very professional. Outstanding group. Represented me throughout the entire process. Saved me, even though I missed getting paperwork on the order of protection that James tried to file against me. Successfully did, which was kind of an odd thing. Normally you don't miss getting paperwork from courts, but we didn't get it or hear about it, and which is very strange. But I didn't get the paperwork or get it on time. There was some various issues, so that caused a lot of problems when I had an order of protection against me, and we had to fight to get that dismissed, because it's very difficult to get an order of protection kicked out. We did, and that really showed a lot for the future of our court hearings when the judges saw, you had his order of protection reversed. You're the good guy now. And it seemed like after that the chapters started changing against James.
Yes.
Especially when Diane and John wrote the articles, and we were able to make things happen.
Yes.
After that.
Yes. Well, a complete media blackout. That's why I've got you here in studio. Chad Berck. We're talking with Chad Berck. He's a McLean County resident. He's also applied to become the next McLean County Board District board member at District 5. And the reason why I really just had you in studio is the catalyst of it all was because Elizabeth Johnston, she's a Democrat. She decided to question you on this. And I think, and this is my opinion, inappropriately asked you a question that was very personal in nature, being that you were the victim here and that your charges were dropped. You had an order of protection reversed that against the guy who, claimed that he needed the order of protection. Now you have an order of protection against James DeWitt.
We do.
Yeah. And he's out and about. Was never arrested for inflicting pain and suffering on your family, or he was never arrested for the stab wound. So if it's not too personal of a question, scars, do you have them?
Oh, I have quite a few scars on my legs. Most of the stab wounds were on my lower legs and then both wrists. And my pinky is kind of distorted where he crushed the
I can
bone
see
from
it there.
biting. He's a biter.
He bit you.
Oh, he bit me and crushed the bone in my finger. That was actually the only thing that really hurt was the bite.
Yeah, because your adrenaline was going
Yeah,
so
I didn't even
much.
feel the stab wounds. I kind of let him stab me a few times so I could get the choke in. He
Yeah.
stabbed in my calf once, and I remember looking at it. It was eerie. Like I'm looking at a guy and he's stabbing me, and that should be worrisome. But I was more worried about getting the choke in. So I said maybe I should worry about this choke so I can stop this. And there's a knife protruding from my calf.
Oh,
I think about it
well,
now.
it's the Holy Spirit.
It was the
the
Holy
Holy
Spirit.
Spirit protecting you,
It was.
trying to keep you safe
Yeah.
enough to where you were able to get in that hold and prevent a potential of him going into your house,
Yeah.
doing some damage to your family, possibly killing you
Yeah.
or your family.
Right.
And it's a shame that you were made out to be the bad guy in this situation. It's self-defense. And one story that I wanted to bring up today, so this is, news. Just recently, there was a motion filed on this past Friday. Daniel Penny,
Mhm.
who also put a gentleman, he died, not very gentlemanly. He had like 40 different arrests. He was irate on a subway, and he would make these half lunged movements, a half a foot away from people. And there were witnesses. There was a mother who took cover behind her stroller with her son and shielded themselves
Mhm.
from Jordan Neely. This is according to her testimony here. And there was a grand jury who indicted Daniel Penny on these charges of manslaughter and criminally negligent homicide in June of this year. Um, yeah, and I mean, you told me, Chad, if you would have ended James's life or ended the altercation to prevent, him killing you
Yeah.
possibly or killing your family, you wouldn't be here today. You would be behind
I
bars.
would be. I know for a fact that special prosecutor would have gone after me.
Mm,
Not to say he's not fair, but he was definitely wanting a conviction.
mm.
But that man in New York uh, protected those people. Unfortunately, it resulted in a death.
So what exactly did I don't even think we went through this. What exactly did they charge you with? The normal PD.
It was felony assault and battery, I believe,
Mhm.
on a public property. It
Okay.
was downgraded to misdemeanor assault, which was ultimately dropped.
Mm. Interesting. It's incredible, folks. We've got to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to wrap up a few things here with Chad Berck. This is a special show. I didn't anticipate this. I just was like, you know what, we're going to have Chad in studio for the first hour. But man, the story was just it's still yeah, I'm shocked. I feel so awful that this happened to you, but I'm so glad that you were sharing your story and letting people know that this could happen to you. It's happened to a neighbor of yours in Ironwood neighborhood. There, it's where Chad lives, and it's like that's my neck of the woods.
Yeah.
It's like that can happen to me. You hear about these stories. Kyle Rittenhouse, Daniel Penny, who was it down in Texas? Daniel Perry.
Perry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That case was wild as well. And then you're like, oh, well, that would never happen to me. It's happening to folks here in your community. So I'm going to be back. This is the Morning Buzz. Good morning, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. If you guys have any questions, go ahead, throw it into the comments section. If you're watching, go ahead, smash the like button and share this out with your friends. It's important that we get the word out that this guy is also still out on the street. I think that there is an element to that. You know, just a full disclosure, my brother, I sent him the article we did. You can check it out at cities929.com. He goes, Kat, I don't think you should do the story. And I was like, why? no. I said, I'm doing the story. I mean, this is a big deal. And he goes, well, your name's going to be on the article. And this guy, if he's as crazy as what you're telling me, or if this story is true, he goes, who knows what could happen, and what could happen more to you? I know you've got that order of protection,
Yeah.
but I don't know. Somebody who giggles while stabbing somebody, I don't know if I want them out on the street.
Definitely don't want him out on the street, but what more I can't do
Anymore.
as far as law enforcement. I literally built a case file,
Yeah.
with video evidence, a ledger of everything, every time he walked in front of our house, videoed us, etc.
Good for you.
I mean, it was a packet, a thick packet with a memory stick that I handed to the police. It was a case file, professionally done, just like a police officer would hand to the DA. I give him a case. According to my neighbor, who was a retired state trooper now, he said that's a case file. That's something you would give to the DA and that they would prosecute. He said it was as good as what he would turn in. That was a year ago almost. Nothing's been done.
So
he has a no trespassing order against Ironwood Gardens, I believe, the apartment complex, because he just verbally assaulted, I know of, the management and residents there.
But he doesn't live there.
He doesn't. No, he lives in Ironwood subdivision.
Wow.
For their dogs going on the berm, which isn't his property. He's a very aggressive person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and would you recommend that people kind of document if they're going through something?
Oh, definitely.
And document.
Just writing it down, date, time, and the event on a piece of paper, even if you don't have a photograph or video, is 100% better than nothing.
Well,
just what you say, the police officer they have to take the time to make it. If you can hand it to them, that helps a tremendous amount.
And anticipating that that you might come into an encounter with a criminal. I think more and more people are starting to wake up to that. We're starting to hear more about how criminal activity is on the rise,
definitely.
and just the anticipation that you could be assaulted in this way. I think that's something. Just be on your toes.
Be on your toes. One thing with self-defense is education. First off, get educated about self-defense. Definitely put your head on a swivel. Get out of your phone. Being aware of your surroundings at all times, especially when you park next to a vehicle like a van. Especially, I hate to say being gender specific, but women, do not park in between two cars. Make sure that you're able to get in your car and you can open your door without being smashed in between two vehicles. If there's something stuck in your door handle, don't touch it. They're doing that now, laced with various drugs. So you smell your finger, you get something on your finger, you smell it, you pass out.
Yep.
But number one is put your head on a swivel so you're aware of your surroundings. You'd be surprised how many things you miss because you're on your phone, you're focused on where you're driving, and you miss things. Someone following you or whatever, or just walking down the street.
Yeah.
But that's the biggest thing in self-defense.
Well, and I don't know what it was. I have no idea. But there's this thing that's going on where you get into your car and in the windshield, there's a letter, there's a note, there's something in your windshield. And it was later at night. I was grocery shopping. I was one of the only few people in the parking lot. There was a couple of cars in the parking lot, and I had something. I went into the store, grabbed my groceries. Thought it was odd because I was like, okay, I've got a piece of paper, and it's late. It's later at night. I think I was like 8, 9 o'clock. I was doing last minute grocery shopping because I couldn't get to it that day.
Right.
But ran in, grabbed a couple of things, and then came out, got into my car, saw a note, and I didn't get out and grab it because it was late at night.
Sure.
And I was like, I don't want to get back out. I'm just going to drive away, grab it when I get home. I waited, grabbed it when I got home. It was just a blank sheet of
Blank
paper.
sheet of paper.
That was all it was, and I thought it was the oddest
That is
thing.
odd.
But I was like, "I'm not getting out of my car, uh, out here right now." And, I was aware I saw some sketchy folks,
Yeah.
and I was like, I don't know, I'm gonna wait." I drove off and
That's good.
blank sheet of paper.
Just anything to get you out of your car.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Hey, good morning, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. You can see me live in studio, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Rumble. We were talking a little bit about self-defense. We've got Chad Berck in studio. He was is a McLean County resident. He's applied to the McLean County Board. He wants to fill that seat, John McIntyre seat. There's going to be a board meeting this Thursday, and Catherine Metzger is going to have to nominate one of 4 candidates. Now, there's David Paul Blumenshine, a radio host here at Cities 92.9, good friend, awesome fellow. Randy Knapp, I don't know him. I do know Chad pretty well now. After a few hours here, we
Yeah.
did a special here. I didn't hit any headlines. I thought that this was far too important, especially given the climate right now. Given the climate, there could be criminals. The border is wide open.
Mhm.
I hate to say that, but it's true. There's all kinds of things. You got to wear your head on a swivel. We've been talking about self-defense, and any tips before we, cut to break here, that you want us to know about, Chad, and in your experience, what should we do to defend ourselves?
The first tip I can give you is self-awareness. There's different levels of awareness that you should be at. Like in your house, you should be at level yellow, where you're just aware, nothing big. When you go outside, you go to level orange, where your head's on a swivel, where you're aware that the guy across the street's mowing the yard, stuff like that.
Mm.
You're not on your phone. You're not focused on one thing. You're making sure that you know that someone's behind you, who that is.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in a crowded area, like you go to the fair or the circus or the mall, you're
Mhm.
at level red, where you know where your kid is at all times.
Mm.
Your young kid, you're not going to let him run free
Mm-hmm.
in those types of environments. That's level red. Always be at level orange when you're not in your home.
Mm.
Never be at level yellow when you're outside your house. So many times you walk around, people are at no awareness. They're on their phone.
Mm.
I could walk up to them literally, and no wonder they're pickpocketed, because I could grab their bag,
Mm-hmm.
their shopping bag, and walk away.
They wouldn't even
They
know.
would have no idea.
Mm.
So self-awareness of your environment is key. That's number one in self-defense, because it's no wonder that these kids are able to come up to you and pop you on the side of the head and take everything. You're an easy target.
Mm-hmm.
So that's number one for self-defense. Number two is just, maybe have a thing of mace, a whistle, something like that, if you're not trained or want to carry conceal.
Mm-hmm.
But the biggest thing, if you really truly want to be self-reliant, is a knife or a weapon, handgun, something like that. Be trained, highly trained in your craft, if that's what you want to do. Don't just go out and buy one, throw some bullets in it, and think I'm good to go.
No.
You're going to get yourself killed.
Go to the range.
They're going to take it away from you and use it against you. Get trained hours and hours and hours.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you can't just buy one and think you're good, throw it in the drawer at home, and shoot the first person who walks in your door.
Yep.
You're going to end up in prison.
Mm-hmm.
But that's my recommendation.
Well, we have to take a quick break. I do want to get to this really quick. Kathy Woods, Republican or not? That's next. Good morning, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in. I so do appreciate it. Like, love, share this out with your friends. I'm going to get to a couple of your comments here. Chad, you seem like a very knowledgeable and smart guy. That's what one of our texters. Yeah. Uh, he is. He's very knowledgeable, very smart. I've learned so much just in this few hours talking with you, and I'm glad that we did this. Another one, they promote it. Talking about mental health, they promote crime. If crime uh, is low, government is needed less. So, um, yeah, if crime is low, government is needed less. So that's what he's saying. He says government needs to step in and they need to protect and public safety, right? Public safety infrastructure. I get that. Good comment. We're gonna be back, I think, for our radio friends. Hold on, folks. Woo! Good morning. Hey, we got about a minute left. So, real quick, I've got a question for Chad Berck. Kathy Woods, Republican or not?
Well, she was really nice. I
Mhm,
enjoyed we were secluded, four of us in a little separate room,
mhm.
and talking with her, she was very nice. My first impression of her, like I said, excellent, nice lady, but I don't think so. She might have voted Republican on the primary somewhere,
Mhm.
but I don't think she's Republican.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so
That's
either.
my
I think
opinion.
it's odd that she volunteered, or well, she talks about her volunteerism
Awesome.
in the forum there, or in the public forum where the executive committee meeting. She was asked, "Hey, what's your experience?" She talks about how she's an accountant. She's worked in the private sector. Then I looked in a little bit deeper and I found her on social media. And social media, it is the town square, folks. You
Mhm.
cannot hide. So Kathy Wood, she actually donated to a cause. It's the Texas Black Coalition. It's a an advocacy group where they work to transition Black children
Oh.
and Black people. It's like transitioning them to trans.
Oh.
So she
Oh, I
donated
see.
money to that. So I don't know. I don't think that's very a Republican trait.
Not really.
Not really, no.
No.
Well, folks, that's going to do it for us today on the
Well,
Morning Buzz. I so do appreciate Chad. Thank you so much for
thank
coming
you,
in. I
Kat.
can't believe everything that I've learned from you in just this few hours. And folks, I'm sorry if you were looking for headlines, you're going to have to find them on our website and on our Facebook page this morning. We had to do this because this is so important. Um, you need to be prepared. You need to defend yourself, and you need to know how to do it without going through what Chad had to go through with the normal police department and our judicial system here locally. So, you guys have a great rest of your day. Bye bye. I love you.